All right, good Wednesday evening, everybody, and welcome to Direct Line Live. My name is Jackie Saxton. I'm your host tonight, joined by Mark Unkefer, and today we have a very special guest. She is known as many things. She's got a lot of titles, but today she's here as the founder of the Queen Anne's Classical Charter School, Audrey Scott. Audrey, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I'm pleased to be here, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I guess the first thing on my mind is, what made you decide you wanted to start a charter school? Because that sounds like a lot of work.
Well, you said founder, and actually I am just part of a group, and I don't consider myself a founder, but I guess that is what we are. We're all founders together. We became, I think, alarmed, and I think we're not alone in the quality of education that many of our children, and in my case, my grandchildren, are receiving. And there was an effort by one of our group when she lived in Florida to start a charter school. And when she came to Maryland and encountered the schooling that her grandchildren were getting, she said, what we did in Florida, we can do here, and we need to do here. And so she called me, and then I called some others, and then we have a little group that we got the application, and that was staggering in and of itself. This is a application from the state of Maryland, which is like the protocol and model. You can see it. It's several inches thick, and we're basically going through that application to get it before the school board. The school board is the authority for approving charter schools. And we have met with our members and have briefed them on our efforts. We have a mission statement and a vision statement and then a plan of action. And so we've done our homework. One of our members, Kate Boland, has done a lot of research. And we all have different roles. My role basically is outreach and fundraising, because none of this happens without good funding. You need the funding to just to start with a consultant that can walk you through the application. Mm-hmm. So we've been very, very hard at work. And some of the statistics, I don't want to get into the numbers too much, but some of the statistics are just alarming. And I wanted to just share with you, there's national numbers that have been released through a variety of different studies. But nationally, the proficiency rate for history is 13%.
Oh, wow.
13%. And in civics, it's 22%. Now that means the other part of that quote numerical quotation is they're not proficient. Now the interesting part, and the reason I raise the history and the civics issue, is because for the state of Maryland, they released their math and their English statistics for the school year 21-22. That was last year. And in their math proficiency is 32%, and their English language arts, their proficiency was 48%. And they don't even have, nor do they publish, a history and a civics. It's not even published, which you have to assume it's not being taught. And that is really alarming, because a good education with history and with civics create responsible citizens, and citizens who can participate in basic democracy. And our students are not getting that education, and they're not getting those skills in our public schools in today's curriculum.
I could say just from personal experience, and I did not go to school in Maryland, but even in New Jersey, I never had a civics class, a class dedicated to civics. And so it is entirely possible that it's not being taught at all. And I do think it's incredibly important that it should be.
And I don't know how many classrooms have an American flag. I don't know. I know that the Pledge of Allegiance is usually at least is played over the loudspeaker system. And whether students stand up and pledge allegiance while that's going on is also questionable.
I say American flags are now considered symbols of white supremacy, depending on who you ask these days. So,
Audrey, could you just do a little description? You mentioned that this is going to be a classical school, and there's really a whole philosophy that's built around that. Could you kind of elaborate on that?
Well, classical you can translate as traditional. And traditional includes Western civilization, Constitution, Bill of Rights, but also includes the basic instructional methods of phonics. Now, I started my career when I graduated from college as a first grade school teacher who taught reading, and we taught phonics. And when students left my class at the end of their first grade experience, they were all reading. And they dropped phonics several years ago. And we have students that are graduating. And this is, again, another statistics that can be checked. We have students graduating from high school that are reading on a fifth grade level. That is the norm. That is the norm. So you have to assume there's something wrong. It's just not acceptable to have the money that people are paying in their taxes for a school system that is failing our children.
I think we were talking before that there are no charter schools yet on the Eastern Shore, so yours would be the first?
We have met with our superintendent and also have talked to our school board members. To my knowledge, there's no charter school on the Eastern Shore. Now, you can have a private charter school or you can have a public charter school. We're talking about a public charter school, which would be an enhancement to the public school system. It would be an alternative, a choice where you can have school choice. And I reference it or compare it to, I lived in Prince George's County, as you know, for many, many years. And in Prince George's County, they had a French immersion school, which was an alternative and an enhancement that parents could choose to send their children to. And it was by lottery because there were always more parents that wanted to send their children there than there were spaces. And I would expect ours and most of the charter schools that we've visited and researched have to use a lottery because parents are looking for this. They are desperate for this. And so you have to use a lottery and do a first come, not first come, first serve, but you have to do a lottery for the entrance. And because of that, the student population is not handpicked. Some people say, oh, you pick the best of the crop. No, it isn't. It's whoever wins the lottery. And it's absolutely fair. And you get a very diverse, and that is what is occurring in all the other charter schools that use this system, a very, very diverse population, including special needs and English as a second language. You get, a typical classroom.
So what's the difference? I know you talked about the lottery system for admission, but what's the difference between a private charter school and a public charter school?
The funding. Private charter school obviously is funded privately. We are looking to become an enhancement or an alternative within the existing school system and to give parents a choice and to provide a traditional teaching methods, traditional subject matter, and the money for a public charter school comes from the public school system. They're public students. Right. So whatever the funding is per head for a student, that same money follows the student. It's not taking away money from the school system. It's just creating another school in the system. And it's the same students. I mean, there are Queen Anne's County students that are going to the classical charter school.
So because it's publicly funded, would the school board still have oversight into what it is that you're teaching or not teaching for that matter? I know last legislative session, there were several education bills basically mandating certain types of education, which a classical school and plenty of the parents who are looking to escape the public school system are looking to avoid. So would you
Well,
still be subject to that?
We are subject to all union contracts for our employees, for our teachers, administrative staff, and clerical and custodial. We also are subject to all the mandates of the curriculum that are at the state and county level. However, there are also opportunities for waivers and to some aspects of the curriculum. And there's also the opportunity for additional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what we're seeing in Montgomery County is with this whole thing going on with parents not being able to opt their children out. The reason that they got rid of the opt out is because so many parents were opting their children out. So they're like, oh, well, we can't have that.
Well, gee whiz, I wonder why. Wouldn't someone in the school system say, gee, why?
Right. Instead of taking the hint, let's just take away the choice.
Right. Exactly.
And it's probably
what can we do to correct the situation?
It's an interesting contrast because Montgomery County, as I recall, has no charter schools yet. There have been a number of attempts to do that. And right across the border in DC, they have a very robust charter program where roughly, I think it's about 50% of the students are opting to participate in a very well-run charter program that's been in existence for a couple of decades now, really going back to the 90s.
That's true in Baltimore City also. And they're catering to the special students and special populations that are seeking and desperate and hungry for good education. Mm-hmm. So they can move up in society and they can, be successful citizens. So it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. And just really follow the parents, listen to the parents. And also in a charter school, there's a very strong parental role. There's parents on an advisory council, there's parent involvement. And so that's something that you don't always get in the regular typical public school.
So how many students is the school going to be able to accommodate?
We need to establish all that in our application, and we're talking about 400, which is we would start with like K through 2 and then add a year each year. This is the typical process that has worked with other charter schools, and that's what we would be doing. We're right now looking for a facility. The one that we visited in Glen Burnie is in a business park. It was a typical warehouse that was just one huge, big, 4 walls that they were able to design and accommodate. And it's proven to be a very successful operation. And there's lots of parking, which is an issue. Over here on the Eastern Shore, we're more rural, and parking hasn't, been something that we've thought would be a major problem. But obviously, we want space for outdoor activities because also you have to provide physical education and all the other aspects of a well-rounded education that's required by the state.
Absolutely.
Now, the Glen Burnie School, that is also a classical school?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
And there are others around the state, I think you were mentioning before.
Yes, there are. As I said, there's 2 in Frederick County. Tom Newmark is very instrumental in starting those, and they are very successful. They started with 1, and it was, a waiting list of 800 people. Wow. And they really recognized they had to do something, and they started a second one just recently.
Yeah, we'll have to have Tom on at some point. I've been speaking with him. He's been leading these keeping your kids home from school for one day, the rallies at the Frederick County Board of Education. So yes, he's definitely been doing a lot out there.
He's a unique individual. We have he's a wealth of information. I should also mention there is a Maryland Charter School Alliance and also a National Charter School Alliance, and both of them are resources that are invaluable. They have webinars where they tell you step by step how to go about it. They have model budgets and model curriculums. You don't have to recreate the wheel if you're starting a charter school, because so many people have done it successfully, and there's help out there, and we are availing ourselves. One of the things that we're right now looking for is to get a grant. And we, of course, have to be able to have a match to show our credibility and our viability. And so one of the things I've been doing is visiting all the American Legions and the Rotaries and the Elks. And they've been very supportive. I just wish I could share with you what happens when I go in and I talk to these groups and tell them what we're talking about. The reception, people say, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I've got grandchildren, or I have children, and yes, we need this, we want this. We want cursive writing. All I have to do is mention phonics and cursive writing, and the people are lining up. I just wish it didn't take us so long to get to where we're actually going to be opening the doors, but it's a slow, long process. We need it right now. We need it today.
So how long does the process take? When are you targeting?
Well, it depends again on funding. It depends on that bottom line. And we're seeking contributions. I went out to dinner last night with a friend and I hadn't seen for quite a while. And I was updating on what we were doing. And almost immediately he said, well, I'm going to contribute. I'll write a check. We're a 501c3. We did that. We established that right up front. And so it's tax exempt. And he said, I'm writing a check right now. I want you. And this is a grandfather. This is an elderly man. And even his grandchildren, are not still in school. But he recognizes the need for it just because the need of our democracy, the future of our country depends on educated citizens who can participate in the democratic process, and students are not getting that. They're just not getting it, and it's a critical. I think it's a crisis in our education system in this country.
So where can people go to contribute, or do they can tax?
Well, we right now have a gentleman that's volunteered to develop a website for us. It hasn't gone active yet, but it's going to very, very soon. But anyone that would help us would be great, would greatly appreciate it. And even just to get to the match that we need to apply for grants, and also to hopefully hire a consultant to help us complete the application. Those are the two critical needs right now today, and they both depend on dollars. So you can make a check out to QA, or you can spell it out, Queen Anne's, and not county, just Queen Anne's Classical Charter School. And you can just do CCS. So you do QA CCS. And you can mail it to me. Just my 217 Hickory Ridge Drive in Queenstown, Maryland, 21658. And I'd love to see the mailman come to my front door with a box,
Well, shifting gears a little bit, we're also involved with another project, aren't we?
Yes, Mark, I'm involved in several projects.
Well, we were
trouble, right?
We were talking before. Now you're a former mayor, right?
I am
of Bowie, right? Going back a number of years. You're former assistant secretary, right, in the various federal administrations, but also a secretary, right, with planning, and a former chairman. So, of all the titles, which is the one that you like the most?
The one, oh, wow. I loved working with Jack Kemp. He was secretary at HUD, a wonderful, we called him the white tornado because he was like a white tornado in that no racial tones or anything, but because he had a new idea every day. Every day he had a new concept or a new idea, and he was so exciting to work for him. And that was during the Bush administration, Bush 41. And then I loved working for Bobby Ehrlich and being Secretary of Planning. And that affected so many people directly. But the one that is the closest to the people, and I'm a people person. I mean, that's where I get my highs. I don't need liquor. I don't need drugs. I get my highs from people. And I loved being mayor because it's closest to the people. And you see the results of your decisions almost on a daily basis. Where at the federal level, at the state level even, you don't really see the results until maybe, years later. And you might never see the results. You might never have that opportunity. So, yes, I guess being a mayor, and I was also president of the Maryland Municipal League.
Right.
So I worked with all 100, at that time, 129 municipalities in the state. And I spent a lot of time in my car, and I went to the city council meetings. I went, I really loved that. And I really got very involved in that position.
If that's not an endorsement for running for municipal office, I don't know what is.
Listen, I encourage, it wasn't that, I have to say it. It was not 1975. I was elected to the city council. 76 was the first term of mayor, and I was elected 3 terms. But there weren't that many women. Now you go to the Maryland Municipal League, and it's half women. But I tell anyone, to really make a difference and to get involved, run for office, really. Public service is an honorable position. And I've always said, I'm a politician, and I hope and have always tried to be a politician that gives politics a good name. And I've strived to do that, and I continue to try to do that in every position that I hold.
No easy task, for sure.
No.
So we were talking about Bob Ehrlich, and we have
Yes.
a commemoration coming up of basically it was the anniversary, 20th years. It doesn't seem that it seems like yesterday, but it was 20 years ago that not when he was elected, but during his first term in office. So tell us a little bit about what we've got planned for that.
Well, October 12th, it's going to be at the BWI Hilton, and we've gone and done a tasting. The menu is going to be great, and it's going to be a wonderful reunion. Some of these people you haven't seen since the Ehrlich administration, and we were all in such a, I know they say there's never been a Camelot since Kennedy, but we had our own little local Camelot here in Maryland under the Ehrlich administration. And not just with the governor, but with the first lady. Kendall Ehrlich was just superb as a first lady, and so personable and so caring, and so available. And I don't know if you recall how the fashion shows that used to do for the fundraiser. And that was so much fun. We had, and also I had a particular experience under the Ehrlich administration because he named me the Isabel Recovery Czar. And at the time, wonderful, I'll be happy to help. But it became an absolute 24/7. That year, and it's just 20 years ago. It happened on September 18th in 2003. So we just had the 20th anniversary. And so that experience, I was in my car going to Hooper's Island, Middle River, and thousands of homes were totally destroyed. And when Isabel actually hit here in Maryland, it had been downgraded to a tropical storm. It had been a Hurricane 5 when it was further south. But when it got here, it had been downgraded to a tropical storm. And people said, oh, it's a tropical storm, no problem. What happened was there was a 4-foot surge on the Chesapeake Bay. And that 4-foot surge just totally decimated so many homes. And we got FEMA trailers. We got a new program. Governor Ehrlich did a program through community planning and development to provide people construction money. And that money didn't have to be paid back until the house was actually sold. And I know people right now living in reconstructed houses from Isabel that when that house is sold, maybe next generation, whenever, that's when that money will be paid back to the state, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because the insurance, I'm saying insurance is wonderful, but insurance doesn't pay the full bill. Far from it. When you have a house and everything's been destroyed, the insurance barely touches it. So Governor Ehrlich created this program to fill that gap between the actual need and insurance.
So tell me a little bit more about what you did as Secretary of Planning.
Well, Secretary of Planning works with all of the municipalities and the counties, reviewing their comprehensive plans. The comprehensive plans are the zoning maps for their community. They're upgraded every 10 years. And zoning, of course, is the number one indicator of the quality of life in any community, because the value of your land is really based on the zoning. And I tell people, if you're going to buy a house and there's an empty field across the street, don't buy it till you go to the county, go to the planning office and find out how that property is zoned. I remember in Bowie, there was a large central area that was not developed, and it was planned as the new town center, commercial, stores, restaurants. And when it was finally implemented, the people who lived next to it or near it were outraged. But it had been zoned when Bel Air and Bowie started in 1962. And I don't think it was actually developed until the late 70s or 80s. So people just got used to this nice big green field. And it wasn't always going to be a nice big green field. So, and now it's the new town center. But you have to do, it's a very basic thing, zoning, and that's what the Department of Planning is in charge of. Really, that's the key issue.
As somebody who's worked in so many, both federal administrations and then also in statewide administrations, can you give us your biggest critiques of both the Biden administration and the Moore administration? I know there's so many to choose from.
You don't want my assessment of the Biden administration. I'm very concerned. I'm a concerned American for the future of our country. And education is just part of it, but a very critical part of it. But it's everything. It's national security. It's energy. It's everything. You'd never go to bed at night if you started, going down and thinking about what's happening in this country. So, and Wes Moore, very, very personable. I don't know him myself, but I really like the idea that he's out among the people. He's been over here to the Eastern Shore. He's, attended events, and he's also been visiting businesses and organizations, and he's got to get to know his state and his people. And I think that he has really started to do that. And I'm glad to see that.
So tell us, what else are you up to? I mean, you don't sound like you have a very busy schedule these days.
Well, I want to say too, people for the Ehrlich event, we kind of glossed over that, but I would hope that everybody who was part of that administration and the people who he went out of his way to make sure that they had resumes, building resumes and stuff, and supporting his appointees will be there to show their appreciation and to say, thanks, Gov. It really made a difference. And the other thing that he's done, this is not a fundraiser or a PAC where he's taking the money or the profit. He's donating the profits to the central committees. What a unique idea. What a wonderful idea. And, we've all been on central committees. We all know how they struggle. And especially, just being a Republican in Maryland is a challenge. And all the central committees have that experience and have that struggle. And for him to have this event and to be able to designate the central committees as a recipient is just a genuine, wonderfully generous kind of act, and that is typically Bob Ehrlich.
Well, he has been, as you know, been very active working on campaigns and supporting candidates. And we've been talking about education. He's gotten involved in school board elections, supporting good school board members to get elected. So he has been a very, very positive force since in his post-governor's position, being a real positive force for positive change in Maryland.
Well, I want to tell you this. I don't think there's a Lincoln Day dinner in the last several years that he hasn't attended or been the speaker. And that is such a commitment. I mean, this is a big state, going to Garrett County for the Lincoln Day dinner, then going to St. Mary's County for the Lincoln Day dinner. And I was state party chair, so I know what that means. And if you're going to do the job and you're going to do it right, you attend every Lincoln Day dinner. And Bobby Ehrlich wasn't state party chair, but he was there. And he went to the Lincoln Day dinners and red, white, and blues, or, what sometimes they call them Reagan dinners, But anyway, I appreciate that. He didn't have to do that, but he's just been so supportive and so with it. And I just, and Kendall with him. It's just a wonderful couple as the, preemptive chair of our party.
So, yes, as Mark was saying, what else have you been up to other than everything you've been up to?
I'm recently very involved in two charities. One I've been involved with ever since I moved over here, and that's called Chesapeake Charities Foundation. And it's a foundation that manages about 160 nonprofits. And we basically provide them their tax-exempt number and all their administrative needs. A lot of nonprofits don't have the wherewithal to have their own secretary or their own, finance chairman. So we do their payroll. If they have payroll, we do all of their grant writing, get them their grants, and we make sure that charity happens. That's our motto. We make charity happen by supporting nonprofits. And as I said, we have about 160 in a 9-county area. It's called Chesapeake Charity. So there are counties that abut the Chesapeake Bay, both on the eastern and the western shore, including Anne Arundel and St. Mary's and Calvert. And then, of course, the ones on the west and the eastern shore. So I'm very involved with that. And then one of my sons, I have 4 sons, and one of my sons last year had a hemorrhagic stroke, which has left him severely disabled. And one of the programs that I was able to get him enrolled in is a therapeutic riding program at a therapeutic riding stable here in Graysonville, which is right near where we live. And it's called the Talisman Therapeutic Riding. And he goes there once a week, and it's absolutely the highlight of his week. It's just so positive an experience for him and for me and for his family to see him thrive in that environment. if you haven't seen therapeutic riding, we do a lot of the autistic children and adults of all ages. Some of them have never spoken, but they'll talk to the horse. It's like a miracle. And we do a lot of the wounded veterans from Walter Reed come out, stroke victims. Anyway, so of course I got Kenny involved, and the next thing I knew, I'm on the board. So it's a funny thing, you know. So anyway, I am chairing an event at Talisman. They've never done this before, to recognize the outstanding volunteers and benefactors over the years. The program's about 10 years old, and it has to have financial support, generous financial support from donors and philanthropists, because each session that we do, 1 hour session, includes the horse and therapists, costs about $300, because we stable the horses, we feed the horses, and we have to have, barn managers, and then we have to have the therapists on staff. And we only charge $80 for a session. So we have to make up that difference. So I'm chairing this event to honor our outstanding volunteers and philanthropists. And that event is going to be on November 4th. And we are looking for sponsors, and anyone who has any interest in getting involved in this. If you had someone in your family that would benefit, just let me know. We'll make sure you, there's other therapeutic riding programs throughout the state, but this is one here on the Eastern Shore in Queen Anne County. It's a beautiful facility and a very, 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 very worthy cause.
It certainly sounds like it.
And I'm doing the very same thing. I'm chairing an event for Chesapeake Charities, which we've done for years. And now, again, honoring our outstanding volunteers and nonprofits. And we're doing that at the Beach Club, and we're doing that on November 16th. So I've got two events. The one on November 4th is we have a new Hyatt place at the Kent Narrows, Jody Schultz. And he's been very, very generous and helpful and helping us have our event there on November 4th. So we've got one at the Hyatt Place on November 4th for the Talisman, and then we've got the other one on November 16th at the Beach Club, which also has been a tremendous supporter of ours throughout the years with the Chesapeake Charities. So
it's November, it's Thanksgiving, it's the time of giving back. So it sounds like a perfect time to do some charity.
I hope people think that way, Jackie. I've got my fingers crossed. Of course, the ticket price doesn't really give you much of a profit. What gives you the profit are the sponsors.
Right.
And, so people are going to get to the point where they're not going to take my phone calls, because they know if I'm calling, I'm going to be asking for either selling a ticket, a raffle ticket, or please be a sponsor. Yeah. So, but it's how I spend my time, and I know it's a worthy cause, and it just gives me a good feeling.
Absolutely. So since we're at the portion of our show where we're doing our plugs, Mark, you got a plug before I do mine?
Not right now, but you go with yours.
All right. So on October 7th, the Young Republicans are having our inaugural legislative summit. It is going to be out at the beautiful Wisp Resort in Garrett County. And we are having several of our Maryland legislators out there. I can confirm that Minority Leader Jason Buckle will be there, Senator Mike McKay. I believe Delegate Mike Griffith will be there, and we're going to have several others coming out as well. We have a great agenda planned, including several panels, including executive nominations, talking about, leadership and service like Audrey Scott has done. How can you get appointed to these boards and commissions in your state? How to testify before the legislature, and an election integrity panel. We're talking about potentially doing a how to talk about abortion as a candidate panel. How do we talk about abortion and win? Because as everybody on this call and watching knows, we are on the correct side of this issue. But how do we portray that to our voters? Things like that. And our key big thing that we're hoping to do year over year is we're going to be doing a Lobby Your Legislator Shark Tank. So we're going to be splitting into groups based off of topics that we care the most about and coming up with ideas for bills and pitching them to our legislators, hoping that they will, quote unquote, invest by sponsoring those bills in the upcoming session. It's free to attend. You can register on mdyrs.com or on our Facebook page. And it's free to attend. You just got to pay for your own hotel room. There's also a steak dinner on Saturday night, October 7th. That's going to be free as well. But much like Audrey, we do run on the generosity of our sponsors, which is how we're able to keep this free, since it is such an important event to get to engage with our legislators. So hopefully you can either sponsor or come out, and we hope to see you all there on October 7th.
That's nice.
Plug. Yeah.
Good for you. I'm glad you're doing that. That's great.
Thank you, Audrey.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation.
It has, yeah. And thank you all for watching. We will be back next week. I'm not sure who our speaker is. Maybe we'll just do our predictions on how the second debate will go, since that's a week from tonight. And thank you all for watching, and have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Sure. Bye now.